A State of Grind, brought to you from the city of Detroit, the place to have our community's most open-minded, creative, and dedicated people come together to redefine the word elite.
In our show, we'll be connecting community members whose insight and actions serve to embody the epitome of our society.
With each guest, we seek to learn, to build, and to further serve our community with our newfound knowledge.
We also work to elevate these individuals as we listen to their stories, perspectives, and their projects.
Today, we will be talking to Leo Ayrault, founder, owner of Reality Tell Your Vision. He is a storyteller and a content creator. This week, we will be learning about Leo and his most recent endeavors with Reality Tell Your Vision.
So grab a seat, let's grind up some coffee, and enter the ultimate state of grind. This is a state of grind.
Welcome, Leo. Welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Love the energy. Love the introduction. I'm here. I'm present. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man. Thank you again for your time and for coming on to speak to us about, like we mentioned earlier, most recent endeavors. So yeah, let's get right into it. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself to the crew?
So hi world, hi listeners. My name is Leo Ayrault. I'm born and raised in Japan. Moved here to America about 8th grade. Kind of went through, that process of change. Went through that process of being alone, being an outsider, being in a position where not fitting in. But being by myself taught me how to be myself. Understanding both Japanese and American culture. I was able to nitpick, what's good about the Japanese culture, what's good about the American culture. And for me right now as an adult, I try to exercise both parties' good sides and try to live and, take a step forward and try to impact the people around me, with what I've learned throughout my life in both cultures.
Nice. So in regards to, since you lived, the first years of your life in Japan and now you're in America, what would you say are like those different facets? So we can start with like Japanese culture, like that people can learn, here from the Japanese.
Yes. So when I first moved here, I definitely had a culture shock. It was different in so many different ways, starting from taking your shoes off at school to wearing a uniform to not wearing a uniform to being able to chew gum in class to, not even allowed to bring your own lunch. That's a sort of, I felt American culture was less discipline driven, but more so, freedom of expression driven. And I think that's the difference between American and Japanese culture. One side of the culture taught me how to, be a leader, organize and do activities, as a group, respecting your elders. When you're a first grader, you're taught to, list the second graders as, or refer to them as Mr. and Mrs. So in that aspect, respect is something that I learned over there, and I think that carried over to my interaction with older folks, whether it's business related or even if I was younger, to my friends' parents. That really helped a lot. And I think that aspect of being able to serve, for the greater good of the team, the greater good of the class, the greater good of the country is something that is more prevalent over there versus over here is more of an individualistic mindset, the importance of having the freedom of thought, freedom of speech. And I think that's beautiful in its own too, because sometimes when you give to people, you forget to give to yourself and you can find yourself in that rut, right? Where in that American culture, that's what that taught me. It's good to give to others, but don't forget about your own dreams, your own idea. So a lot of, what I do today required a lot of courage, and I give kudos to the American side of the culture on pushing me and, being a leader in society and being proud of yourself. So I think those are the differences that you see both. So incorporating both has been a fun thing to do, but it has also shown me a lot of cool things from doing that.
That's great. So something that I do know personally, I've never been to Japan, but the culture about it absolutely fascinates me. But there is something to that collectivist society, because at the end of the day, an individual is only as strong as himself. But if you surround yourself with people who will push you forward, people who have like mindsets than you, then the sky is the limit at that point. You can build pyramids, you can build skyscrapers.
Yes.
So how do you, as an individual, apply some of these cultural concepts, both that you've learned in Japan and in the United States, and apply them to your everyday life in how you practice with your business, or even how you communicate with your friends and society?
Super awesome follow-up question. The way I do that, and I was just thinking about this morning, I think that level of respect that you learn in Japan carries over when you go into the workforce. So I'll give you an example, right? I went to McDonald's yesterday to get a cup of coffee for my girl. Mm-hmm. The guy who was working there was miserable. You can just tell. Yeah, can I take your order? No, we don't have that. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do you want?
Yeah.
Okay, to the point where I was like, let's not even get the food. Let's just get out of here, because this person's probably going to spit on our food or do something bad to it, or it's not going to be a good coffee. But that service alone was just so god awful that I don't even want to buy anything here, right? In that person's mindset, I'm empathetic towards that person, because I can understand where he is, and I can guess, right, that he doesn't like where he's at because he feels that he can be doing more with his life than the job at McDonald's. But in Japan, if you worked at McDonald's, nobody looks at you like you were a second-class citizen, or people don't disrespect you. Oh, you work at McDonald's, go get my burger, man. Like, nobody treats people poorly based on their status in life. Mm-hmm. So you get that as an employee, you still have that sense of pride to give that best service forward, right? But that guy didn't look at that, right? He most likely looked at it as, I should be doing something better. I can't let people see that I enjoy working here, so I'm going to be a very negative person so that people know that I don't belong here. But, are you bigger than McDonald's? No, you're not, right? So I think what I learned is respect isn't just, I respect you, Paul. It's respecting myself and what I do enough, and respecting each other and what they do enough to understand that my contribution to society is through this job, therefore I'm doing something positive to the world. I think that perspective is not, really present in this culture, where everybody treats people differently based on what they do, So when you meet somebody at an event, the first thing you ask is, so what do you do? Mm-hmm. Not, hey, you happy today? Or did you do anything fun today? Like, nothing about the person. It's more about, what are you doing with your life? Let's compare and contrast and see if we can talk and connect, or let's see if, I don't need to be talking to you. I think we're losing that love, and the way we treat each other is not as good because we lack that respect, right there.
Yeah, beautifully said. I mean, from my experience living in Japan, you hit the nail on the head with the respect no matter where people work, because they know that everybody has something to contribute to the greater whole of society. Yes. Going back to the aspect of collectivism within Japan, and knowing that Japan, out of all the Eastern countries, is actually technically the most individualist, but it still has a predominantly core collectivist aspect from its the past history with China and with all the other Asian countries. So now that you kind of lived in Japan and you moved to the US, overall, moving to the US, how did that affect the outlook on your life? Like moving here, trying to make new friends, trying to connect and build those new bridges. Overall, the move to the US, how did that affect your outlook on life?
I think it evolved. I think each stage in my life has been different. But originally, because I moved 3 times in the first 2 years of living here, I went to 3 different schools. Mm-hmm. Yes, I came to America. Oh, I'm a new kid from Japan. But I had to be the new kid in America 3 times after being the new kid from Japan. So by the 3rd school, I'm looking at myself like, man, I can go into this school and act completely different than who I am. People won't even know. Like, how would they know if that's the real me or not? So that sort of questioning and thought process kind of went through my head. And then I started to think, okay, I can't change myself to impress a certain clique or try to fit into a clique, because I'm too authentic for that. So I failed at that. But that led me to be by myself a lot because of that. So I remember sitting at lunchrooms by myself. I remember eating my lunch really quick and walking around the hallway so that people didn't think I was a loner. Like, I'm a very social guy and I have a lot of friends, but at that time I didn't. This was pre-Facebook, all of that. So all of my friends were on the opposite side of the planet at a different time. So like, I had to be by myself a lot. Mm-hmm. But that was the best thing that happened to me, because being by myself taught me how to be myself. So later on in my life, after I graduated college and I had to figure out what I wanted to do with my career, I went down that entrepreneurial route. Not the glamorous Instagram posing for everybody I'm an entrepreneur route, but the actual, I don't know when am I going to get my paycheck yet. That route, the scary route, the route that people say, are you sure you want to do this? But not giving, any attention to what people think of me. That is what contributed to the courage and the stupidity sometimes to say, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go down that route.
So in adapting to that culture, which, it is a total 180 of culture, from Japan to here, and in a way, we as humans, we adapt to everything that we do in life. So how have all of these transitions, how have they changed your outlook, and how has that affected your practices?
I think the biggest thing that I learned since moving to America is that life happens for you and not to you.
Okay.
And for me, the first time I recognized that was when I went to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I think most of these viewers that are listening to this conversation don't know what they want to do with their lives, whether they're 18 years old or 38 years old.
Real quick, how old were you when
I was, this is my college time, so this was
18?
right after high school,
Okay.
so 18, 19, 20, 21,
Okay.
around that.
Okay.
And I was working as a bartender at a restaurant. I was failing my classes because I didn't think, I couldn't find the curiosity to sit through a 3-hour lecture. I was paying out of pocket, so $4,000 a class, and wasting $3,000 not $3,000, but 3 hours per day, right? So you're paying $4,000 out of pocket, and you're wasting 3 hours of your day. Just doesn't add up right, If I'm spending that much money, I better be getting something valuable. But at the time, I just couldn't see the value in that, nor did I have the interest and the spark to study accounting or stuff in that nature, those basic classes that colleges teach you through lecture. And I was struggling, and I ended up getting a academic probation letter sent to me from the university saying if I don't get my GPA, it's going to kick me out of school. And coming up, being raised in an Asian, household, I was never an all A student because I had to, go from one culture to the next, and that was, hard to learn everything in your secondary language, right? And learning how to read and write, I could speak, but
right.
Learning how to, okay, what is the definition of this word? Okay, what does the definition in the definition mean? It's double the work to study. So that uphill battle was hard enough. So when I went to college is even hard for smart students from high school, right? So That was a very, very tough challenge. But what ended up happening was while I was going through that time where I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I was going through this negative path, my grandpa, who I loved dearly, my American side of my grandpa, he had cancer. So I was going to work, I was going to school, and I was going to the hospital. Those are 3 places that I visited. That's it. I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have, not that many friends too, because all of my buddies that I finally made in high school, they went to a different school. So I was commuting to school. So you don't really meet people if you're a commuter. So I was just in a really, really low spot. And finally the day came where he died, my grandfather. And I saw it with my own eyes. And I don't know if people have experienced something like that, but when you experience somebody die with your own eyes, you get to see the end of life and what that looks like. And what that looks like is your bed, and that's it. You're gonna go. And whatever you believe in happens after that is to each to its own. But for me, I saw a man take his last breath. And I saw my timeline. And however much space I have left, it's up to me to fill that space up with a positive color. And it's not, I'm going to be happy for the rest of my life.
Right.
But it's every single day making sure that you make your days count. So when you get here, all you're going to have are memories to reflect on because you can't move. So do you want your memories to be positive, good memories where you're looking at your life and say, man, I gave that all I had? Or do you want to look back and say, man, I was an idiot. Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I go after that dream? Why didn't I talk to that girl? Why didn't I, believe in myself? And when I saw his life end, I kind of saw my ending, and I got to have a choice to say, do I want to regret it, or do I want to cry in tears and peace out of here with nothing but an abundance of gratitude in my heart? And that was the choice that I made in that moment. So ever since that day where I witnessed him die, his life ended, but mine began that day. And then when I went to his funeral, and this is where life was happening for me, I see so many people there. I'm like, are they having like a joint funeral going on right here? Is this like a 2-for-1 special? Who are all these people? Different walks of life, you know?
Yeah.
They're all coming up to me and say, your grandpa made a positive impact in my life. I'm so glad your grandpa was a part of my life. When I heard that, I was like, this is what success looks like. This is what I need to be chasing. Not the job titles, not the however much money you're making per year or whatever status that you want to achieve yourself. It's how many people's lives can you touch? So that became my mission. And then from there, I changed my degree, I changed my goals, and I changed, my purpose around that. And I ended up building a business out of that. But before I built that business, it started off as a radio show, just like this. I was interviewing people and doing all sorts of stuff. And then I went and I ended up getting an internship opportunity with the Detroit Lions in the NFL. And how I got that, I was working at a shipping department. This wasn't Wayne State's power. This was just life happening for me. And at that event, with the shipping department at Ford Field, I met a former player, and he was able to give me a reference because I had an elevator speech prepared in my mind because I studied about those things. So it's preparation meets opportunity meets success. And when you prepare constantly and you know what you want and you apply a little bit of pressure to that dream every single day, God, universe, whatever you believe in is going to hook you up with an opportunity. And that preparation is what's going to allow you to get to that next stage, to that life. So that's exactly what happened to me. I attained an internship, position that's, offered to the world, one slot. I got it. I had no business in that position. I didn't know how to shoot or edit. They were requesting me to shoot and edit like hype videos for the Jumbotron during the game.
Yeah.
I got to learn all this at once. But because I had to learn everything double speed when I moved here to America, I was able to learn the technical stuff and shooting and editing double speed as well. So I was able to fail through that experience,
sure,
and then form my business from what I learned. And now my business is my baby and I love it. So life happens for you. I didn't schedule my grandpa dying to figure out what I wanted to do. It happens for you. You just have to be in the right mindset. So
it's amazing, man. And to be honest, that story really hits home. I've experienced a personal death through cancer, and I've witnessed firsthand what the loss of a life is like as well. And to your point, it totally changes your perspective on, like, it makes you realize that life is a finite resource that we only have so much of it, and you never know when it's going to be gone. Mm-hmm. We're healthy right now. We are young, active fellows, but who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? A car crash could come out of nowhere. But the point is that gratitude and what you do with the time that you have in this world that makes it count. And it's amazing that you're able to take something that is traditionally seen as a negative and turn that into a positive.
Yes.
And that's an outlook that not many people have in this day.
Yes.
It's almost like we take a certain pride in being the lowest of the low, whereas it should be the exact opposite. We should take the lows and find a way to flip it on its head and make that work for us.
I like to say this: same word, different tonality. Exactly. When things happen to you, if you say,
why me?
Then you're going to go down that path. But if you say, why, God? Why, universe? Why, whatever it is out here? Why? Then you get that answer of why. But it's all about the tonality in which you present yourself. It's energy. Life's about energy. If you believe that abundance, and if you believe that good things will happen to you and you deserve every blessing that happens to you in life, it will. How else will it?
Some form or another.
Like, you have to. And like you said about our life being so small, I was, the moment I felt that was, I was looking at the sunset in Santa Monica in California, right? That beautiful beach and that sunset, you've been there. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, man, how many sunsets do you think have gone up and have gone down like outside of my lifespan? Right?
Many.
So many.
Too many to count, man.
So many to count, to the point where I looked around and I was like, man, my life is that grain of sand in that beach. Our life is that grain of sand in that beach. That's how much time we have. So make the most of it. If you think you're gonna fail at your dreams, you might fail at what you don't want to do too. So you might as well go after what you want to do too, And I think the other thing, and I know I'm talking a lot here.
Go ahead, man.
But like the misconception that I see is that word purpose. Everybody is depressed because they think that they don't have a purpose in life. But in reality, the reason why we can't find a purpose in our life is because we have more than one. You can't single it down. You have a purpose as a son, as a family member, as a cousin, as a friend, as the host of the podcast, as a member of Elite Detroit, and anything that you do in your business endeavor and your family life, you have multiple purpose.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
We all think we don't have a purpose, but in reality, we have so many. So it's making sure that each of those purposes are being fulfilled, in a positive way. So anybody who's listening to this who thinks that they don't have a purpose, you do. Exercise the ones that you have, and be good at all of them, and you will gain more purpose.
Right, and you have to try things, right? Like
Yes.
you to your point earlier about you being a bartender, you having to go through college. These were all things that you essentially tried out, whether society told you to do it and you felt pressured or you felt compelled because you wanted to do it at that time. At the end of the day, you're failing forward in a way, and the reason why I say failing is because maybe you didn't like it, and you're like, this is not what I want to do. So at that point in time, you're like, I gotta get out of this, I would say positive feedback loop within that negative realm. But once you get out of that and you find that which sparks your passion for helping people in whatever way, which is a type of purpose, then you can continue to move forward with intention.
And never underestimating sweat equity too. Like, I started my company after my internship was over. Like, I officially formed Reality Television as an LLC in 2017. I took my photography, videography, and editing skills, and I incorporated it all, and I started making digital contents for businesses. Because every business that don't have a digital presence in today's society ain't a business. So I knew that there was a niche there. So I worked hard, right? But in order for my business to become self-sustainable, I had to make sure that I was getting some sort of income in the beginning to afford a living, right? So, but I had to be intentional with my time. Because if I have a job and I have a shoot booked, I'm taking that shoot and I'm getting fired from my job because I'm going after my dream. I didn't want to ever put any employer in that position. So I got an overnight job, spraying down toilets, rubbing basketball courts down, and cleaning equipment at Lifetime Fitness overnight, okay? Now, you are freshly graduated from college. You did an internship with the National Football League. You're getting 5-course meals every meal. You get to travel to Green Bay and shoot a Packers-Lions game. You get to rent out the entire stadium after you formed your business to shoot your engagement shoot for the best player on the team. You do all of those things where it's like, yes, I feel like I have accomplished, but then you have to go back and spray toilets down. Do you know the level of like humbleness and like just the level of like character you have to say, I'm still gonna do this because this is how much I want this dream? That's when God tests you, how much you want the dream. He don't test you when the things are going really well. He tests you when the things are really, really hard and when you have to do things that you don't want to. But when I had that job, I wasn't a negative employee. I did everything that they asked me to, and I was always asking, what can I do more? What can I do more? My work ethic didn't change, and I think so many people, like I mentioned earlier in the society, they're so like, oh, because I have this job, I'm gonna screw up. I don't want people to know. Now I'm gonna start treating people poorly because I'm treating myself poorly. My perspective on myself is horrible, so my perspective on others are horrible too. I never wanted to go down that route. So fundamentally, I stayed intact. I had dirty rags thrown at me by hairy old men, fat old men, just throwing me these dirty rags, hit me and I was like, man, like, but I kept my composure. I worked hard. And God saw that sweat equity, and from that, he gave a bunch of gigs started to come in. And there I was able to walk away from that job and become self-sufficient enough with my own business. So you have to go through that. Don't skip any steps. I just wanted to mention that too.
And can you just point out real quick, kind of like as a caveat within that, because in this culture, as well as in the West in general,
Yes.
people care about what others think of them. So the perception that others feel toward them from others affects the way that they're gonna strive for their dreams, if they do at all.
Absolutely.
And that's pretty much, the saddest thing that could happen.
Yeah.
The graveyard of dreams, where people your whole life you cared so much about what others thought, you never went for it. But other people are too focused and caught up on what they want to do with their lives, what they want to aspire to be, that they're sometimes rarely even thinking of you. So it's kind of like, that caveat of continue to work hard, continue to get the sweat equity. I don't know. To your point, what do you have to say about that? Because in this culture specifically, not in Japan too much.
I mean, even in Japan.
You're right.
No matter what culture.
Yeah, I'm wrong on that.
I think fundamentally speaking, let's look at basketball for example. There's a lot of people who love LeBron James, and there's a lot of people who don't like LeBron James. And the people who don't like LeBron James are mostly people who don't even play basketball. So why does a person who plays basketball bother you so much where you say, I don't like that guy? Well, the reason why you don't like him is because he looks happy playing basketball. People don't envy what you do. Nobody's envying you doing this podcast because this podcast takes a lot of work. But when people see you happy doing this podcast and the level of success that comes with it, that's when people get envious of you. And they say, why am I not doing that? These guys are making me feel less than. I don't like them. Let's bring them down. That's the fundamental thing that happens within people. That's why it's so important to do inner work and get over your insecurities. Because if you don't do that, you're always going to constantly look at things that people are lacking because you're constantly looking at things that you're lacking. So I think it's very important to realize that not only people aren't necessarily judging you ever. It's usually just you judging yourself.
Like a reflection.
Yeah, man. And if you're not doing something because you think that it's going to be whack or people are going to think it's going to be whack, it's usually yourself. It's that hater that you're envisioning that is hating on you exists in your mind. She doesn't exist out here. It exists in your brain. So once you realize that person exists in your brain and it's not real, then you're like, all right, let me just do it. And just do it.
There's a Bible phrase that says, the greatest among you will be the servant of all. Meaning that it goes back to full circle what you were saying, is being that grain of sand, being that part of the collective. Also, being able to acknowledge the reality of yourself and humble yourself to that extent.
Yes.
To say that you're above, cleaning toilets, to say that you're above working at McDonald's it's a fallacy in itself, because none of us is above that, right? To a certain degree, we all hold the same standard to each other. We all will live and we all will die.
Yeah.
And that's it. Everything else is details. But what you do with that time, that's really how you define your legacy, right?
Yes.
So I guess going back a little bit more about you. So when people ask you, what do you do? What do you tell them?
I'm essentially a storyteller. See, when my late grandpa, who, propelled my career to start, he was good at making people feel important and making people feel good about themselves. And I think that's very, very, very important. We have to do a better job of hyping each other up. I mean, guys, we are on this, like I said, we're a grain of sand in the whole entire beach, right? And we have a chance, and we, for some odd reason, are on this planet alive at the same time with each other. You guys could have been born in any generation, at any time of human history, but for some odd reason, we're all here together. So now we have a choice to say, okay, do I want to make their experience a better one because I exist here with them, or do I want to make it worse? I just refuse to make it worse. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's, tell us a little bit about your businesses. What is a day in the life of Reality Television LLC?
Okay. Yeah.
So from that, right? that became my mission, to empower other people. And what I realized is that every single person on this planet is unique. There's what, 7.2 billion people or 6.8 billion people in this world.
A lot more, I think.
Yeah, okay, probably closer to 7
It's a good amount,
billion.
yeah.
But we all have different fingertips for some reason. We all lived a different life. There's an accumulation of perspective and knowledge that we gathered throughout our lives to make us an individual.
Sure.
Well, my job is to make sure that whoever I'm working with knows that I'm willing to listen to them and what that is, and I'm willing to bring it out of them, and I'm willing to put a spotlight on that. My job is to make people realize their unique qualities, bring them out, and saying their unique qualities are ways to differentiate ourselves. No, our unique qualities can be used to come together, to realize our common denominators. So for me, every story that I tell through my videos, through my photos, I should say that we tell, because we have a whole team now, is to make sure that each of our clients are able to tell their story, and we help them tell their story, and we help them spread their story, because we all have the power to inspire each other. We all have the power to serve each other. So my job is to make sure that people are getting the recognition that they deserve. So that's what I do with my business, with my camera.
Gotcha.
That's awesome.
Yeah, dude. So in regards to the day-to-day operations, like the technicalities, and especially for people that are interested, that are videographers themselves or that are just starting out, what are some of these technicalities? I mean, for you, from your experience, because as to your point earlier, you mentioned that everybody goes through their own experiences that makes them that unique individual.
Yeah.
But for you, as a
For
storyteller,
for me, I think the one thing, the technical part of it differs from day to day, because some days you're shooting, some days you're editing, right? But every day you're working on something.
Right.
But I think as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, when you start something from the scratch, what you have to realize that there's going to be so many tasks that you have to do. Oh, I have to form an LLC. I have to make a website. Oh, I have to register for a domain. What do I want that domain to be? Oh, I have to assemble a team. Oh, I have to make sure that I have an accountant. Oh, I have to make sure that I'm paying my taxes. Oh, I have to make sure that I have some sort of logo design. Oh, then I have to make sure I crowdsource or have an event or have some sort of, how do I find a way to serve people so that I can start making money? How do I market myself out there?
Right.
There's so many things that you have to do in your business. And it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
But the people who understand, okay, I don't really need to work myself to death, but if I do one thing that contributes to my day or contributes to my dream every single day, after a year, and you know how fast a year goes by, especially now, after a year, you're 365 steps closer to your dreams. 365 steps closer to your dreams. That's a lot of steps closer to your dreams. So my thing and my technical side of my job, yes, some days it consists of editing. Some days it consists of working on my website. Some days it consists of shooting all day long. But maybe I'm not answering your question technically, because that differs. But
varies.
The philosophy that you need to have is that do one thing a day. After a year, 365 steps closer to your dreams.
Very nice.
So that's the advice I would give to anybody who's starting off, or anybody who's in the middle of it and that's struggling. One step at a time.
You guys writing this down, right? You guys taking notes right now?
So, I started a business as well, and trust me, I can sympathize with the amount of organization it takes. Like you said, you literally have your checklist. Do I have my website? Did I pay for my website this year? Yeah. It's all the details.
That's why it's so important to love what you do. Because if
I was about to say that exactly.
Like, I don't want to do this. But if you love it, you're like, oh, I gotta make sure that's on.
It's not work to you.
It's fun.
It's not work to you.
So fun, dude.
So me personally, I understand the ramifications that the 2020 pandemic had on businesses. Like it affected everybody in one way or another, for the positive or for the worse. And I think we can all share similar stories. But for you, how did the pandemic affect your business? Were you busier? Were you not as busier? Were you like, what am I gonna do if this keeps going?
Can you re-ask that question in a different way? But I'm gonna tell you. Ask me that question. Say, how did the pandemic happen for you?
Sure. How did the pandemic happen?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You know, it's how you look at it, right? The pandemic initially happened to me in the sense of 100% of my business got shut down.
Mm-hmm.
You're not allowed to gather. You're not allowed to see people. As a photographer, videographer,
that must have been frustrating.
Dude,
That's
it was
so
scary.
Yeah.
And I was living in an apartment, you know, at the time with my former relationship. And I even broke up my relationship during that time. So my expenses doubled. Okay? So that was a very, very, very scary thing. But how it happened for me is that sometimes as humans, we need to be thrown in the fire in order for us to adapt and become that beast. You know, like a phoenix has to
Rise from the ashes.
you know, it rises from the ashes, right? So like sometimes when you feel like life is happening to you, it's actually happening for you. And that's why mental health is so important. Your ability to remind yourself that constantly is what allows you to see the perspective and say, okay, I may not know how I'm going to get out of here, but I can still at least see that first step. I'm going to take that first step. And for me, the phrase that helped me get through the pandemic was, while the world is at still, those who stay in motion create separation. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, the world is at still right now. I'm going to do something. So I took that opportunity to organize my business more. I took that opportunity to study my business more, understand the industry more, understand the equipment more. I took that time, that excessive time that I got, the time where I could have, and there were days where I sat in that apartment depressed, crying, like no furniture, like just, you know, real, dude. Like, I didn't know what direction I was going to go through. But again, those are the moments in which you tell God. This is how you communicate sometimes. You communicate by being that stubborn being that says, I ain't moving. This is what I want. You know, quick story. One time when it got really rough, I needed to make $500, $800, something like that to pay rent. And I had a gig lined up. They cancel on me the day before. How am I going to pay my bills? And I remember I was like, oh my God, this is over. But then I was like, you know what, God? Screw that. I'm going to put my phone right next to me, and I ain't moving this couch until it rings. And I sat there for 2 hours, didn't move, just sat there. And all of a sudden, ding. Hey, Leo, could you help me with the shoot tomorrow? I can pay you $500 or $800, something like it. It was like right along the money that I needed.
Right.
And I was like, yes. What is it? It's a funeral. I'm like, funeral. So I go to this funeral, and I'm shooting, right? And it's awkward and it's uncomfortable, but I seem to be the right man for the job because I had a level of respect for the family, and like. My energy, I could adjust my energy enough to do my job well and do my job and get away, you know, and let the families be.
Right.
But while I was setting on my camera, I was wondering, I was like, why am I here right now, you know? And then I realized that not only did God answer my prayer by giving me this gig, but he answered my prayer by where he sent me. That shoot was in a church. As I'm setting this up, I'm looking around like, oh, okay, you really answer my prayers here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then afterwards, which was even weirder, was right around that time I had lost my Japanese grandpa, which, by the way, I haven't been able to go home to Japan because of COVID, and that's how it affected me too. I haven't been able to say my goodbyes to my grandpa yet. But like my grandpa died, my Japanese side, and he was a anchor reporter for NHK, which is like the CNN of Japan. And he always told me, do what you love, Leo. Do what you love, Leo. Do what you love. Even when he had Alzheimer's, do what you love, Leo. Do what you love. He loved what he did with his life. So when he passed away at that time, it was like great timing because I needed that message. Mm-hmm. Do what you love. Do what you love. And he passed away, and I remember watching his funeral through my phone because of Skype. And if it wasn't for that gentleman, that worker, to hold the phone, I wouldn't have had that peaceful goodbye with my grandpa, right? Well, fast forward, and I'm shooting, right around the same time,
Right.
I'm shooting this event, right, or this funeral. And after the funeral was over, the family came up to me and said, Leo, there were family members who couldn't travel here because of COVID. You shooting this funeral gives them an opportunity to have their peaceful goodbyes.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Life was happening for me, not to me, right? It was also happening for them as well, in the sense that I was able to serve them with my gifts, with my ability to shoot. So even in the toughest times, when I felt like all of my business was gone and I was purposeless, there was always one or two purpose that I was able to fulfill that helped me carry over those tough times. And I trusted that there was going to be abundance. Even if I went in debt, abundance.
Right.
Guess what? Abundance is here today. Never been busier. I have a full team that I want to grow with now, and RTYV, the brand, is growing now. So like, it's just, the abundance is there. Just have faith, pray, control your mental health, talk to good people like these two, go on nature walks, do everything that you can to sustain yourself through it. And when you're out of it, the grass is greener for sure.
That's great, man. And honestly, it almost seems like the pandemic just like happened like that. Like it started, all of a sudden we were locked down, and everything.
Yeah.
Now it's just like nothing. Like, I mean, sure, you still see some remnants of some specific ordinances out there, but now moving forward, now that industry is booming again, arguably, what you've worked with many organizations. Detroit Lions including. I was looking at your website. You worked with many famous artists, musicians.
Big Sean.
Big Sean, I know, is one of them.
Yeah.
For you, what was your favorite organization, favorite individual to work with, and is there anything any strong lesson that came from that experience?
Yeah, I think each and every single client that I've had thus far has served a purpose in that point in my life. I think, why you have 2 clients, you hope that you had 10. But then when you get 10, you reflect back on the 2 and you realize, man, I'm so thankful for those 2 that were there. So I can't pinpoint which gig or which client was most important to me, because every single one of them has served a purpose for me. Even that funeral, right? Like, I needed that chunk of change to live, to have, to make a living that time. So that one is just as impactful as it was to shoot, Foot Locker and 107 and doing their, give back with Big Sean and his organizations. Like those, I've shot the Field of Dreams gigs with Parker Grant. I've, done gigs with Microsoft, like I said, with the Lions, and, I've, flown to Nevada and New Jersey, and I've done like these amazing things with amazing people. Like, I've been in rooms that I never thought I could be in. But I think that each and every single experience is, that chunk of time that fills that timeline that I was telling you about, So I can't pick a single favorite one.
Gotcha. It seems more like one gig led to another.
One gig always leads to another.
One opportunity presented another. New doors. Essentially, that's what it seems like. Okay, gotcha. So you had all these organizations to work with. Detroit, the U.S., traveled all over domestically, and obviously you're an international man. I don't need to say that. But any plans on going international for your business?
Yes, that's the next goal.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing that I personally had to overcome in my life is, I think my insecurity was that being a mixed kid, I never felt like I fit in anywhere. So when I was growing up in Japan, I was always tall and I had a white complexion. So I was the gaijin. Gaijin means outside person, right? So I've always felt like I was different. And then I come over here and I'm the tall Asian guy. Who's that tall Asian guy? So like, I was always categorized by the opposite, and I never fit in. I remember my junior year, like I played. We had a scrimmage on our basketball team, and the coach wasn't there, so they thought it was funny to play white kids versus black kids, and they told me you can't play because you're neither.
Really?
And there was like a ha 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 moment. But now I reflect on it, that's a horrible moment. So like for me, I just want to be. I just want to convey that message, Paul, that we're all under one race, which is the human race. And if we don't start looking at each other in that way, I don't fit in anywhere. So it's very, very important for me to push that narrative that we're all one. It's very, very important for me to exercise, that task of what do we all have in common, and understanding that the same ways in which we can find the difference in one another is the same ways in which we can find the similarities in one another. So I just want to continue to do just that, and hopefully if that narrative continues to push forward, and as society accepts that narrative more, which it has, we all start to see interracial couples more and more, right? We're gonna have more mixed people than people who are one race, and that's gonna be beautiful, so I hope to continue.
Yeah, sometimes I see some magazines that like kind of aspire to like predict how kids or how human beings will look at it in 2030 or 2050. I don't know if you've seen it before, like some Nat Geo or sometimes in the stands. But in regards, transitioning over from international to domestic, your whole journey has been a transition of one opportunity to the other, from Japan to America. So what can Americans watching, and the world at large, but more specifically here in the US, learn from the Japanese culture?
From the Japanese culture, or from what I've learned from
your experience from the Japanese culture? You as somebody that was born and raised in Japan, what can Americans learn here? Take something that you took of value from the Japanese culture.
I think that in this society, right, we are raised to keep our eyes on our own paper. We are raised to not talk to our neighbors during tests. But in the real world, those are accepted. You're going to be constantly be tested in life. But the misconception that you can't ask for help, is just false. So think of life as a giant test, but I can ask these smart guys for their answers. I can look at their sheet of paper and say, hey, what'd you get for number one?
I see. I think
people lack doing that. And I think the Japanese culture teaching me to respect the second graders and call them Mr. and Mrs., the reason why they teach you to do that, and the reason why they do that, is because the second grader has a full year of life experience ahead of you. That's valuable. That year, 365 days of extra knowledge is valuable. If you look at that as valuable and say, okay, what can I take from that? Now, while you're going through that 365 days, you're at a higher level because your perspective is right. So I think here, the youngsters are always trying to prove to the old cats on what I can do. But and the old cats hate that because it's like, oh, they're trying to take our spotlight, right? And there's not a good relationship between the older generation and the younger generation. But I value mentors. I know the importance of mentors. I know. So if you have somebody in your life that you admire, that you want to emulate, ask more questions. Ask them, wow, that instead of saying, wow, that guy drives a Lambo, ask them, hey man, how are you affording that? What did you do to get there? What's your story? How do you view obstacles? Ask those questions. And people who are successful, they want to share, because when they share, they get to relive. Me sharing my stories with you guys today, I got to relive each stage of the life period that I just went through, thanks to y'all. And you guys took away, and hopefully people took away, and they're able to incorporate that in their lives and do the same exact thing and live life happily, So if you have happy people around you, ask questions to how they're being happy, because I guarantee you it's not just who they are. It's efforts that they put in and tactical things, like you said, that they put in to make them happy. So ask questions.
Right.
So now, turning that kind of around, we kind of asked how Americans could learn from Japanese culture, but now how can Japan, and maybe not just exclusively Japan, but how can the rest of the world learn from American culture?
Through your experience.
I think what we can learn from American culture is, I think, like I said earlier about the self-value aspect of it, the importance of believing in your own dreams, right? America's called the land of the opportunity. is because people have the freedom to go after their dreams here. Much larger freedom, you know. We don't have to worry about a military or a group of, you know, people with guns coming in and, you know, taking over our cities, or we don't have to worry about, you know, people dividing up during, you know, and killing each other because of religious or political reasonings, you know. Like, yes, we've illuminated things that are wrong in this country, but there's also a lot of things that's right about this country.
Amen.
And I think that, you know, our ability to welcome each other in each other's homes. America is a culmination of people. It's not just under one race. You know, the original people were the Native Americans. It's not the white folks. The white folks are minorities about this country too. So like, not just saying, oh, white people versus everybody else. Like, no, not that narrative. We're all, you know, people
Americans,
that come from different places, and that unity is what makes America, United States of America, you know. So I think that what we can do, or what the rest of the world can learn from America, is the ability in doing that. It's the ability to see each other's culture and say, not just, okay, what can we appreciate and what makes their culture different, but trying to figure out ways in which, okay, what's the similarities in our culture, you know? I love people, American people who are born and raised here, who are curious about other people's culture. I think that's a beautiful mindset to have, because that person is always looking to grow. I think, but I think what the world can learn is that you know, that collectiveness and with curiosity, but also that individual mindset that said, you know, that says, you know, I want to make the most out of my life here. I think having that courage, you know, is very important for anybody around the world, because it's your life, one life, grain of sand. Like, let's make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, we're all immigrants to a certain degree. I moved here when I was 7 years old. I think Paul
Yeah,
maybe was
I moved here when I was 7, actually. Yeah, same.
You know, a few years before me. I'm a little younger, but you know, you moved here. I think after
14.
14.
Yeah.
So right after middle school.
Yeah.
And I don't know. For me, it always baffles me when people who have been here their entire life start down talking America, because to us, man, we come from, you know, Mexico. You have a very, very poor country. A large amount of the country is poor, and we come here and everyone's talking about their goals. Everyone's talking about being something bigger than they currently are.
Yeah.
And to someone from the outside, that's very refreshing.
Yes.
Because you don't see that everywhere. And that, to your point, is what I think makes this culture so progressive in its strive to be the best version of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it shows with, I mean, I don't know the exact statistics, but it shows when many people from different parts of the world want to come to the U.S. They're dying to come to the U.S. They literally would love to trade places with us. We're sitting here on the couch on a Sunday afternoon talking about ourselves, talking about your successes and talking about culture, while you know, other people from other parts of the world are just trying to live and get the next, you know, food on the table for the day. But yeah.
So going back to what we can give back to our society, because we have to be grateful for our blessings, absolutely. But with what we have, that's what's more important with what we do with it. So for you, someone who's an entrepreneur, a creator, a storyteller, what advice would you give young entrepreneurs, young storytellers, and to get them ahead or get them to be motivated in what they do?
I think that advice has been planted throughout this interview. I think there's little nuggets that I have shared, phrases, you know, whether it's the, you know, do one thing every day, or whether it's, you know,
365.
you're the only, you know, the biggest hater in yourself and all that. But at the end of the day, what I want young entrepreneurs to know as they go through is that nothing is easy. Like, but also, like,
I think that's worth it.
Figure out what your why is. I think so many people can come up with an idea and they work on that idea and it gets tiring, and they lack that belief that they had originally, you know? Right. And it starts to fade away, and you do it a little bit, but then you stop doing it. but your why is what continues you to push forward when the time gets boring or when it gets hard. For me, it's to continue my grandpa's legacy. I loved both of my grandpas. They were catalysts in my life, and they helped me become the man that I am today. You know, these perspectives and this personality that I have, you know, I think I bring love to the table, and most people that I encounter, they love me. And in order for me to show love, I had to learn what love looked like. They gave me what love looked like. So I think that just understanding that life happens for you, not to you. You know, understanding that it's kindness, it's sweat equity that you put in. That's what results in you know, results, I guess. But like, it's, don't overcomplicate it. You know, don't make it a thing where you have to do it. It's, you get to do it. But also, like, realize that why you do it is so important, you know, and actually sit down and think about that. Go into nature, go spend time by yourself and find that deeper meaning, because when you're hit with hardship, that deeper meaning is going to be so strong that it's going to push you through. You being a fitness coach, Paul, like, I guarantee you, the hardest part about staying in shape is that consistency, right?
Consistency is the biggest
But
factor.
your why is strong enough. The reason why you're doing your fitness business is strong enough for you to continue. Even if you don't have clients, even if you feel like you're, you know, like you're not at your 100%, if your why is strong enough, you will continue. So I think that's the advice that I would give to young entrepreneurs is figure out what your why is. And even if you figured out what your what and how, make sure the why is intact, because that's what's going to push you forward, and you're going to be able to go.
Beautifully said, Leo. Well, I'm sure I can speak for Andres. We'd love to be sitting here kind of talking deep and philosophical most of the day. But before we go, how can people contact you? How can people find you if they're interested in, I mean, setting up a gig with you, or if people are interested in even going to work for Reality Television?
If you're an aspiring photographer, videographer, and you want to be a part of the Reality Television team, you know, all I want to do, the reason why I wanted to make this a company and a business, because I remember when I was working as a bartender, you know, I worked my butt off, and I got promoted from a host to become a bartender at age 18. I can't drink yet. So all these 21 plus year old, you know, servers are all hating on me. Well, you don't even know how to drink these drinks. Like, how are you going to serve them? I was like, well,
we're talking down to it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I can sell this. But then, like, the people they replaced me at the front desk couldn't fulfill the role that I was doing. So they took a responsibility, i.e. carry out, from the front desk, and they're like, okay, who can handle it? Oh, the bartenders can, because Leo's there. So I got punished for working harder. And it affected my money, because now I can't attend to the bar, right? I can't attend to the customers. So that just ruined everything. And I remember in that moment, I was like, man, like, why am I being punished for adding more value? I want to build a company that is the opposite of that. The more work you put in, I want you to feel not only like you're growing with it, but also like I'm appreciative of the extra work you put in. You know, so like that's what I want to do. So if anybody that shoots videos, shoots photography, edits, that wants an opportunity to be in that type of environment, go to my website, realitytigervision.com, and click that Work With Us page and fill out your application, send it. If you are a business owner and you need photography, videography work done to tell your story and put yourself and have a better digital presence, go on realitytelevision.com. You'll find all the information of that. But if you personally want to follow me and the journey that the team is on and the work that we're doing, follow our Instagram. That's where we're most active. That's at Reality Television. Reality Tell Your Vision.
Perfect. All right, guys.
It's been a pleasure having you. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for taking the time to join A State of Grind.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
You want me to do that Tony Robbins story real quick?
Oh, please. Yes. Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay, so guys, before we wrap this up, something crazy happened to me the other day. So I've been part of the common narration that I've been saying, right? Is the phrase that I've been saying is life happens for you, not to you. Well, recently, my parents who have been married for the last 29 years, they're going through a divorce. So it's been very hard on me because I'm a product of their love breaking apart. That affects me. So Reality Tell Your Vision and my business success has helped me navigate through that, but I always tell myself life is happening for me, not to me. Well, the other day it was a little harder for me to accept that, because some days it's a lot harder. And I pray to God, I was like, listen, like, if you can give me a sign today that life is happening for me and not to me, like, I kind of want it to be today. And I feel like it's going to be at this gig I'm about to shoot. So I arrive at that gig. I walk in. It's this huge conference, this big facility. I'm like, man, what am I doing? And I'm shooting. And I find out that the guest speaker who's speaking next is Tony Robbins. The person I learned that phrase from, life happens for you and not to you. I learned that from him. And he's right there. After I asked God, give me a sign that life is happening to me, or life is happening for me, not to me. He's right there. I'm taking his pictures, man. It was the craziest experience. I mean, how obvious is that, Like, so for me, I wanted to share that story because it brought me to tears and it was such an incredible moment. Like, God, universe, whatever it is, it's got your back. He's got your back, whatever you want to call it. It's got your back. So just go after your dreams, go full force with it, and it's got your back. So
For sure,
that's my last story that I wanted to share that happened literally 3 days ago.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Very poetic.
yeah, indeed. Well, thanks again, man. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to talk to us, to share with the world your stories and your successes. And
thank you guys.
I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.